What a wonderful movie. Jean SEBERG was in many ways an icon of her generation. Why do you think was she such an inspiration?
Jean in Breathless, in Au bout du souffle, I think she gives one of the first kind of truly modern performances of cinema, and in a way, in that moment, when she looks at the camera at the end of the movie and runs her thumb across her lips, she defines a kind of new style icon, but she also defines what modern cinema acting is. She has a raw, instinctive, freewheeling, improvisatory quality in that movie, and she starts to become what we look for in cinema, where we want to see the life force of the actor, not just an actor playing a role. So I think I think this is what people knew her for, and then from that, the haircut she had at that time has given birth to so many other similar haircuts. She became a style icon because of that. But the period of her life that the movie looks at is kind of a shadow and kind of a secret, partly because I think for many years, even though there were some biographies about this, and New York Times published a piece about what happened to Jean, but people didn't want to know about it, and I suspect the FBI didn't want the story widely told. But her activism and the way that the FBI's surveillance was turned as a kind of weapon against her life, I think, is something that she's not known for, and it's a kind of terrible tragedy what happened to her.
And that's also the reason you bring now the story on screen?
Yeah, I mean that I was fascinated on a personal level of what happens to an actress under such pressure. I've mostly been a theatre director most of my life, so I have the great pleasure of working intimately with actors and seeing their bravery and their incredible vulnerability. But also, to do that job, you have to go into all your secret private places, into all the stuff we're meant to keep hidden, and you have to put it on stage or in front of the camera. And the FBI takes that. They use their surveillance equipment to go into that private space and steal from it and turn it against Jean. So I was very interested in that action and to look at both sides of that surveillance. And then, yes, also in that, to see what happens to a woman under that type of pressure, what happens to an actress under that type of pressure, and what happens in the character of Jack to a man who realizes that he's involved in a dirty war that is causing damage to someone he comes to care about through watching her. So the movie describes a very tumultuous time in American history. Jean says America is at war with itself, and that is something that feels very, very urgent at the moment, where those divisions are so huge. But also some of the other themes in the movie feel more, extremely urgent as well. The idea that we now live in a mass surveillance culture, which we see the seeds of in the movie. And in the movie, we also see the kind of manufacture of a fake news. Lies being created and used as weapons, and we feel the emotional cost of that in Jean's life.
Yeah, and so what message would you like to transport with the film?
I don't really want to believe in giving a single message in the movie. I think you're pulled into an emotional experience, and that films burrow their way into your dreams. But I do think that in Jean we see someone who had the courage to hold on to her convictions and to hold on to her idea of a political truth, and the idea that injustice can be challenged. And in a similar way, in the character of Jack, we see the idea of someone who realizes that truth is important enough that they will risk their life and their family and their career, like we're seeing with whistleblowers like Edward Snowden, or the whistleblower currently in the what's happening in America, and the whistleblower kind of shining light on things in a corrupt White House. And so I think that idea, that question of truth and hard-won truth and not giving up on truth is a very urgent question in contemporary life and contemporary politics.
Yeah, that's true. Like SEBERG, Kristen is also like an icon of her generation. Why do you think she becomes such an icon?
Because she's not fake, and I think this is something she shares with Jean. Like, there's nothing fake about her. She's coming from the guts. She's following her curiosity. She's following her passions. Jean was also a kind of boundary crosser. She's a girl from the Midwest, growing up in Iowa, who ends up the darling of the French New Wave, and Kristen also has a similar sense of Jean as moving across different worlds, and she's also got she's got a very kind of cool, adventurous sense of style, and is just completely her own person.
Yeah. And the last question, how personal or emotion attached have you become with SEBERG during your preparation?
I lived with it for 2 years or more, diving into all of the research material, watching her movies, but then even more so living with Kristen's Jean over the course of the shoot and the course of the edit. And I think both Kristen and I, and the other the other filmmakers, the writers and the DP, and we all felt this sense of wanting to really do justice to Jean's life, and to kind of hold her tenderly and hold her life tenderly, so that when people leave the cinema, they will also kind of carry that connection with her in their hearts.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.